Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to SMP Capacity Building Training Webinar Series, Module 4, Networks, Mergers and Acquisitions. Let me start with some housekeeping issues. Please select your language preference. The German channel would be for Georgian translation. And please note that the event will be recorded. ქართულისთვის გერმანული არხი აირჩიეთ თუ შეიძლება. ეკრანის ქვემოთ მრგვალი დედამიწის ფორმის იკონკით შეგიძლიათ აარჩიოთ. Following the webinar, Small and Medium-Sized Practices Rising to Coronavirus Challenge of May last year, the EU and WorldBank joined Georgian Financial Inclusion and Accountability Project with support of the Georgian professional accountancy organizations, conducted a survey of small and medium-sized practices to assess the impact and implications of the coronavirus pandemic on the market for audit services in Georgia. In the survey, you have indicated the areas of your special interest on which we have based our series of webinars. The series are led by Paul Thompson, Director of the European Federation of Accountants and Auditors for SMEs, and our consultant. In today's module, Paul Thompson and guest presenter Antoni Gomez, International Chair of Auren, will look at the use of networks, associations, mergers, and acquisitions to facilitate growth of a small practice and how to plan for succession. Participants will also learn what resources are available to help them. At the end, we will have a Q&A session as well. Please type your questions at any moment in the Q&A chat, stating your name and organization. And we will revert to the questions during the Q&A session. And the video recording and slides will be available after the event via email and at www.sars.gov.ge. And now, without further ado, I will give the floor to Ms. Syria Potter, Attaché and Program Officer of the Delegation of the European Union of Georgia. Syria, over to you, please.
Thank you, Irina. I am happy to be here and say a few words to the participants of today's seminar. I have participated in some other seminars too, maybe even last year with the same audience, and I don't want to repeat myself. So today I would like to say a few words about two things. The first is culture, namely the business culture in Georgia, and the second is quality of reporting. Financial reporting mostly, but also non-financial reporting, because both of those issues are actually tackled by you, the participants of this webinar. I am quite sure that you contribute greatly to quite good results of businesses in this regard in Georgia. Let's start from business culture. The reporting culture in Georgia is really high. It's a very new thing here to submit the financial reports electronically via the portal, but the results are really good. The percentage of those companies who submit annual reports through this portal formally is over 90%. And actually, I heard from my colleagues from WorldBank, who are currently here as well, that this is the percentage which is not which cannot be attributed to many much more developed countries and economies in the world, not only in the European Union, but in the world in general. So we can say that the authorities who have made awareness and advocacy for financial reporting in internationally acceptable way and through internet is very good. And I'm happy to say that probably our support through WorldBank experts has given a certain contribution to this as well. But the main thing is actually those who help small and medium businesses to do this practice in a good way. So I am quite sure that small and medium practices in financial sector are really great support to this process. Second, the quality. Quality of financial reports can always be better. And now we also introduce those internationally acceptable standards of reporting. But I would say that quality, as assessed by the institution SARAS, who receives and should review the reports, also the National Bank of Georgia, which is responsible for reviewing the reports of banking sector, they admit that the report is not, the quality of reports is quite good. But I would like to mention one more thing. Probably you have heard that there is also a contest of financial reports, which is now becoming a tradition in Georgia. For 2 past years, with support from WorldBank, those financial reports have been submitted for competition by different categories of businesses, from banking sector, also from non-banking sector. And I have witnessed very nice, actually, how to say, award ceremonies. The first one was physical in National Library of Georgia, and it was really pleasant to be there. The second one in end 2020 was virtual. And of course, it was not so pleasant to be there, but more awards were given and more high quality reports were presented and selected by an international jury. It was not just a jury of professionals from Georgia, but in addition to Georgian professionals, also international people participate. So finally, I would like to say that keep those standards high. Business culture in Georgia and also quality of reporting and services provided by business sector. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very nice seminar today.
Thank you, Syria. Paul, over to you, please.
Thanks, Irina. Thank you very much for the introductory words, Siri. That was very, very well said. So today, this is the 4th webinar in a series of webinars, which, as Irina mentioned, we are running in order to help you, small and medium practices in Georgia and also in neighboring countries, adapt to a new normal that's been presented to us by the global pandemic. These webinars are effectively online training modules. This being the 4th one, which is focused on networks, associations, mergers and acquisitions. Now, if I can recap, we started these webinars back in February, and we kicked off the webinar series with a webinar that focused on the need for practice transformation, why it was important that you consider changing the way you operate, the services that you offer, etc. And we followed that up with 2 webinars, one on digital transformation, the need to leverage new technologies, and another one on diversifying your business offerings, offering different types of services such as business advisory. So those were the first 3 webinars, and now we come to the 4th one. So as you can see from the agenda, what I'll do is I'll just have a few slides just to introduce the subject matter. But the main course, if you like, for today is a presentation that will be given by Antoni Gomez. Antoni Gomez hails from Spain, and he and I happen to work together for the International Federation of Accountants. He as a member from Spain, and I as a staff member supporting that committee. We will then close with some Q&A, and as Irina mentioned, she'll be moderating that question and answer session. We encourage you to type your questions into the Q&A function or the chat box, and we'll be picking out those questions, and Antoni and/or I will be responding to them.
Paul, you muted yourself.
Thank you very much, Irina, for pointing that out. That happens often, doesn't it, these days? Antoni is the international chairman of Auren, an international network. He's also the chief executive officer of the Antaia Alliance. And he will be speaking in a few moments' time. But before he does, a few words of introduction. So back in February, we started this webinar series with presenters from the International Federation of Accountants talking to us about the need for practice transformation. And they presented to us a document which has been translated into Georgian and which is being translated into Russian, called Practice Transformation Action Plan, a Roadmap to the Future. This presented the need for practice transformation, the need for small and medium practices to change the way that they operate and the services that they offer. This action plan is very important at the moment, not least because the global pandemic has forced upon small and medium practices to operate differently. And the chances are that some of the ways in which they have changed the way they operate will become permanent. They're not just temporary simply because it's caused by the pandemic. We imagine that going forward, some of these changes will be more ongoing and continuing. Now, the action plan that IFAC presented to us in the first of this webinar series centers on 4 key messages, centered around 4 key themes. The pervasive one is that of embracing change, the need for small and medium practices to accept that things are always going to be continually changing. And the challenge for us is to try to anticipate those changes and to make the necessary adjustments. And also to guide our clients, the small and medium-sized enterprises that we provide professional services to also enable them to anticipate and make changes in a timely fashion. The other themes, as you can see, presented on the slide in front of you, including leveraging technology, focusing on talent management, but perhaps the most important one for the purpose of today's presentation is the need for small and medium practices to evolve, or at least seriously consider evolving the way in which they operate their practice model, and to build the capacity to provide advisory services. Now, a few words on building advisory services. If one looks to the leading jurisdictions around the world, one finds that small and medium practices are increasingly offering business advisory or consulting services. These are the fastest growing source of revenue for small and medium practices. Now, in order to do that, there are 5 key action points or initiatives, as are presented on the slide in front of you. And we talked to those a few months ago, in fact, on the first webinar. I have highlighted the 4th one because the 4th one is what is relevant today. In order to build the capacity to provide advisory services, and certainly to offer advisory services to international clients, foreign companies, for example, that are operating in Georgia, or Georgian companies operating overseas in other markets, it may well be necessary to use networks, associations, and alliances. And that is the primary reason why we have Antoni here today to talk to this issue. Before he does, a few words on the practice model. Which practice model is right for you? I've listed on this slide here the 6 main types or forms of practice model, many of which should be familiar with you. Many of you on this call, I believe, are sole practitioners or operating as partnerships of equals. But there are different arrangements, different practice models that might be suitable. I've mentioned it here, for example, the cost-sharing arrangement, where a few practices come together. They operate independently. They have their own set of clients, but they share certain costs across more than one practice. We also find not only a partnership of equals where everybody has equal rights and responsibilities, there are, of course, partnerships which are not equal by design, deliberately. These are partnerships, for example, where perhaps you have a partner who is retiring or about to retire, and they are putting less time into the practice. Or you have a junior partner who's not yet gotten to the point of having equity in the partnership. There are also, in the last few years, the emergence of what's known as the consolidator model. This has been practiced in the United States, the UK and Australia with mixed results. The consolidator model often is where a practice becomes incorporated, and there are therefore other shareholders other than the accountants, other than the partners. But as I say, there are mixed results as a result of using the consolidator model. The final one that I list on the slide is multidisciplinary firms, and this is rapidly catching on, especially in jurisdictions that permit multidisciplinary firms, because it's important that they are, of course, legally permissible within the jurisdiction for them to happen. Multidisciplinary firms may bring together, for example, lawyers and accountants working side by side. My last few slides, I just want to stress what are globally the world's largest international networks and alliances. What you can see on the slide in front of you are the top 10 international networks ranked by their latest annual total income. And you can see the previous year's income, and you can see the change from the previous year. The latest annual total income is typically that was reported for the last financial year. And typically that was the period ending 31st December in 2019 or early 2020. We're yet to see what the results are as a result from 2020. And of course, the interesting question will be, to what extent did the global pandemic impact the global revenues of these accounting firms? The only thing I would like to say about this slide in particular is you can see the big four, Deloitte, PwC, EY and KPMG, are far larger than the next biggest, which is BDO. And another thing that I would like to add is that if you look closely at their income, their revenue, you find that there are the main growth area where most of the new growth in revenues is coming from is in advisory services, is in business advisory and consulting services. And this is also true of the top 10 international alliances and associations, which are listed on this slide here. You will see the largest one being Praxity, followed by CGI Global Alliance. I have included here in 17th place, ranked 17, for the set of financial statements of 2019, Antaia. It happens to be one of the fastest growing international alliances. it has gone from being the 20th to the 17th largest from 2018 through 2019. And it's with great pleasure today that I happen to have the Chief Executive Officer of Antaia, Antoni Gomez, who is also the International Chairman of the related network, Auren, with us today to present. So Antoni, it's with great pleasure that I invite you to present today.
Thank you, Paul. You are, as always, very kind with me. It's a great pleasure to share with you my experience or the experience of our organization. Certainly, I have the experience in different elements that we are talking today. On one side, we have a network. We have also an association, the Alliance, as Paul mentioned. And also, we have quite a lot of experience in merge and acquisitions, in different ways of growing. We started Auren just for make some background familiar to you about some experiences around 20 years ago. At that time, we were in Spain just around 100, putting together, mixing 6 different offices, trying to make some kind of collaboration agreement to develop what we are now talking about. And now we are a little more than 1,000 employees in 15 cities and covering as Auren in this process of expansion, other 11 countries. And then we have this alliance because we are in 11 countries, but the world is very wide. So we need to solve our clients' needs around the world. And this is the reason of the association, the alliance. This is the key point. I think Paul mentioned some elements about what is the legal right model. I'm talking in this slide more on the strategic point of view, because everything starts on the strategic thing. Basically, our world is changing, and not only because of the pandemic situation. It started significant change several years ago. On one hand, the business is more and more sophisticated, also regulation, also needs of clients. But on second term, clients are better prepared. People from client staff are normally better prepared than several years ago, and clients are demanding us much more than several years ago as a consequence of the business is more complex. And the 3 essential change is the world is absolutely global. Even small and medium companies do business internationally. They have agreements, distribution, selling products, buying products. So the needs are not just pure domestic, but are international. So we need to think about how we plan to afford this new or different environment. I'm absolutely convinced that there is market for everybody. There is market for a small practice, there is market for medium practice, for very big practice. The essential point is to be coherent. That means if we try to give a specific image to the clients, probably some name of the firm could affect. We are transmitting image, communicating to the client about what we would like to be in any single elements that we do. This has to do with the location of the office, has to do with the furniture, with the style of attention, with everything. So depending on our strategy, we need to implement all these kind of elements. What we are talking on strategy, we mean what kind of service we would like to offer, to who, what kind of clients we are thinking about, big clients, international, local, in a specific sector, and how to differentiate our offer from the others. Everybody tries to be different. It's absolutely essential that we give services and remain relevant for the clients. If we don't do that, other people will fit our lack of relevancy on that. So it's very, very important to focus not in our skills specifically, on market needs. So depending on the kind of clients and services that we plan to do, where we see opportunities, then this should be the stream machine to then think how to do that. Alone, together, association with other people, then we will talk also on international networks and association. If we move to the next slide, please. The main reason for our value proposition is, as I said, this kind of strategic thought. On that, we should analyze what are our strengths, where we are weak, but also on the opportunities and threats. Generally speaking, reasonable size is important, certainly depending on the market we're trying to cover, as I said before. But size means the capability to offer a wider portfolio of services, means the capability to return best talent people. It's more attractive to work in a professional firm which future is clear and is progressing, that in some firm that is stable or even is decreasing. The most talented people maybe can think that the future is not in such firm, and probably we will lose always the better. The people that we would like to leave the firm never do that. But the people that we would like to return is the people that normally would like to have other kind of landscape for the future. So this has to do, saying that the size is important in general. This leads to do about the question of what kind of growth, organic or inorganic. Organic should be always present because it has to do with profitability, and this is absolutely necessary. But very often, organic is not enough to achieve the size and the differentiation and the capabilities that we try to have. So we should consider always merge and acquisitions. Certainly, again, on our example in Spain, we have grown continuously during those years. But for us, it has been extraordinarily important, this kind of merge and acquisitions with other firms. And this increases the potentiality, because when you merge with someone, normally, as I will mention soon, you increase also your capability. Merge and acquisition is a way to integrate new specialties, for instance, or to recruit talent people that probably could be used in better way, in an optimized way, in a bigger size in the resulting firm. There is always some kind of questions. What are we thinking, or what should be our goal? Similar size or bigger firm or a smaller firm? When we are talking on similar size, normally what we try to integrate is additional skills or expand the market. For instance, we can merge with some other similar in size with us, but specialize, let's say, on non-for-profit organization. And this opened the capability of us to enter on this sector. Or, for instance, in health care domain or in any other points. Also, it could be the right way to integrate other specialties. Could be very difficult to integrate advisory on technology if we start from zero. You need to have some initial critical mass to be recognized on the market. So, focusing on similar size allow a significant growing, especially on some complementary skills, some complementary services, etc. When we think on these elements of similar firms, then you should take care always to people. When you work also in similar acquisitions or merge, if the services are similar, you work on something that is known. If you are integrating some partners that are not similar to existing, then you should rely more on people. If you, for instance, merge with some IT specialist and you are just accountant, you should be sure that you will understand each other with the new partners, because your future is partially on the capability and the style of working of these people. Always is necessary to pay attention to teams integration. Sometimes one of the dangers of the integration, merge or acquisition, is that some people can, internal people, staff people, can anticipate this as a threat. What about me? This means that my professional career would be stopped. Other people will substitute my aspiration. But from the other side is also a lot of doubts on that. What would be my new bosses? Can we be treated as I used to be treated before? So this is extremely important, because it's very, very significant that people see this operation as an opportunity, not as a threat. Think that the staff is the normal people that are talking with clients. So the attitude they have towards this kind of merge would be the attitude they will transmit to the clients. So it's very, very important to talk openly and to explain and to answer any questions, and to consider that for staff, both sides of the merge or the acquisition, this is walking on the unknown. So you need to be sure that they see this operation as a great opportunity for everybody. If we move to the next one, we are talking a little bit on merge and acquisitions. What is better? Okay, on merge, you don't require significant financial capital. You need this for acquisition. So this is one of the advantages of the merge. So you have much more opportunities to grow through merge, even if you don't have a lot of money on cash. Significant point is that power is shared and should be shared. Very often, this is a key question. If people in a merge feel that they would be second category partners, the results would be very bad. So you should be disposed to share the power, the knowledge, accepting other people, other points of view. And no matter if other people are much more intelligent as you are, this would be the benefit of the firm. And be confident on yourself. You have your capabilities. So other people have also the capabilities, and joining capabilities where we are multiplying possibilities of development of the firm. So it's very important to ensure that everybody visualize advantages for everybody. This should be based on common vision and mutual understanding. So pay attention to this kind of social part of that. Close the agreements or any step on the agreements with a dinner, with a lunch, in an informal way, because personal relationship is essential to ensure that a merge works. Some words about acquisitions. First point is that there is a great opportunity on main partners' retirement. Later, I will talk a little bit on this element. It's again very important, the process of incorporation. Don't think that as you pay for that, you have the right to do whatever you want. As I said before, it's very important that this should be seen as an advantage, especially for the staff on your side and for the other side. So it's very important, this point that I try to stress, take care of communication with staff, with minority partners, with manager, with your own people, because not necessarily your understanding of the advantages would be shared by all your staff. So this is extremely important. It's normal that negotiations were under non-disclosure agreements on confidentiality basis, but it's very important to take attention on that. I used to say that once the agreement is achieved, before making it public, it should be explained, not as a final agreement, even if 100% or 99% was agreed. It's important to share with the people, to ask their opinion, etc. It's also important to do that with clients, with significant clients. Look, my experience around a large number of years is that clients are very happy with this kind of operations, because means that the capability of the service would increase. But it's very appreciated if you go to the key clients and you say, look, I'm thinking in merging with this, or I'm thinking in buying that. What is your opinion on that? People feel actually as a business partner of you. Of course, they would say, wonderful, congratulations, you're great, but this increase this kind of relationship. And as I say, with the clients, with relevant clients, I say also for crucial or essential members of our staff. What is your opinion? What is your view? Because then they feel part of the common project. Next slide. Something more about merchant acquisition. It's important to be clear your motivation and your goals on that, to avoid false expectation. So it's important to consider what are you trying to have with this kind of operation, and also to think if your organization and your partners are ready to make some kind of renounces. Some kind of renounces, because if until now you were, let's say, 3 partners, you will be 6. And 3 partners, maybe, you know each other since 10 years ago. Other partners are new. So you need to discuss, and older partners need to be prepared also to make some kind of renounces on the power. And the key questions, when talking about merge with a bigger one, and we would feel comfortable, depending on how big, what would be the consequences if you are merging with one of the big four. What are the consequences? Are you happy with that? So what are your expectations? With someone bigger, with someone smaller, what would be the advantages for both sides? And if you are looking for a similar or a smaller firm, what are the advantages? Because maybe if this merge with a very, very small that has not a specific knowledge, don't contribute with too much to your future common project. So it's important to explore actively any opportunities, all the opportunities that have in front of you. Of course, it's significant, very important to ensure confidentiality, even if you are in the strong position or in the weaker position. If you are negotiating with a bigger one or with a smaller, because what is awful is any kind of rumors on that. It could be a signal of weak position of the firm, maybe lack of confidence on the future. So it's very important to control information that could move around the ales or the coffee places on your office. And another important point is to be patient. Probably you will explore 5, 10, and only 1, 2 will succeed, because there are a lot of conditions. I mentioned personal understanding, interest for the both sides, capability to organize in a better way. It's not just to add, and that's all, the turnover of the clients from both sides. It's very, very important to say what in this new environment, what is doing each one. Because maybe some of your partners, or maybe some of the partners on the other side, is more enthusiastic about marketing activities. And so maybe it's not necessarily that he or she review any more audit reports. Maybe we can dedicate this person just to establish new contact and to try to develop the firm. So it's very important to be sure that certainly there could be not just an addition, but a multiplication of capabilities. So not always the situation would be positive and resolved. Again, some points that are to be considered on merger and acquisitions. Name is one of the main difficulties. People love the name they have. And so it's very, very difficult to say, well, you are merging with us and you take my name. On the other hand, just adding the two names is crazy. At the end, the results on the names are not good for marketing proposals. Some of the names, nobody would remind the name of that. So this is very important to consider. Pay attention on the name. Negotiate on objective basis what would be the best, who is better positioned, etc. Or directly, which name is better. By the way, it's very important that names start by A. It's always at the beginning of the Latin alphabetic order. This is why our firms is called Auren and the alliance is Antaia. So pay attention of these elements of the name. Also, on acquisition, very important to be sure that you are not buying an empty box. Sometimes some of the operations, especially on retirement, is some retirements too late. Some firms that we have dealing with in some cases, just the principal partners has become elder and elder with less capability to serve clients. New generation on the client side see that maybe we need to change. This person is not changing at the same way of the times. I need international business, whatever. And so at the end, you have the risk that the personal fidelity, loyalty with the principal partners disappear when there is another person. So it's very important to be sure that the main business will remain even after the transitorial period when you are acquiring a firm and then the principal partners of the partners retire. It's also important to involve your partners to be sure that people is happy with the process. Is time demanding. You would need to talk a lot on this kind of operations. It's not to say, okay, I put the money on the table and that's all. Tomorrow you move to my premises and start to work on that. You need to be absolutely dialogue. You need to spend time on before and later of the operation. And also communication to the market. If we do properly, this would be seen by the markets as enormous advantage. Use social networks to communicate, but also pay attention how to inform to the clients, looking for the both sides as enormous opportunity, not just say, well, as the acquired company is planned to retire, we are taking over all this. If we move to the next one.
Antoni, may I just make a quick observation? Very interesting what you mentioned about the importance to settle on a good name, not something that becomes totally forgettable overnight. And that one of the reasons why you have chosen Auren and Antaia is because in the alphabet that you and I, A is at the start of the alphabet. Obviously for Georgian SMPs, for other SMPs across the region, they might want to consider selecting a name that is near the front of their own specific alphabet. And just one final comment, Antoni, you'll perhaps recall that a former colleague of ours, Mark Kazil, is now the Chief Executive Officer of the Allineal Alliance. So I think he has very sneakily got AL just ahead of AN.
You are fully right, and you know myself for a long time ago, and I used to be very open with this, and I will mention another tip on that on the name. The name should be short. Short means in Latin alphabet 2 syllables, not a single one. You cannot say only one, but it could be not longer, or the better is not longer than 2 syllables. Auren, Antaia, because the longer, the more difficult to remind. So it's important that sounds nice, but quite short, and also as much as possible original, of course. Okay, some points if you plan to sell. Normally, these are related to retirement. As I said before, this should be a long process. You should plan to finish the sale at least 5 years in advance. You will be required to stay on the practice for a certain period to ensure transition from one partnership to the other. So don't think that once you have signed the sale of your practice, you will go to your country house and stay peaceful. You should stay for several periods on the practice. And also, at the right time, you should be sure that this would be accepted by staff. One of the operations that unfortunately didn't work in our case was that we tried to keep for an acquisition this element of saying, well, before making public, we need to talk with the staff, etc. The seller say, no, well, I'm the only shareholder. People would go very happy. Finally, the people say, well, goodbye. And so we didn't buy, we didn't formalize the operation. So it's very important that this was accepted by the staff, making formal also meeting from your junior and the other party juniors, just to share a cup of coffee and to talk openly, directly on their own language about how happy they will feel with the new adventure. And also comfortable for the new partners, you and the others on vice versa. And normally the price is on statements and contingents to final figures. So it's very important that both parties pay attention to this transitorial period to ensure both parties are interested and that clients remain in future. So some elements, mixing teams, paying joint visits with partners from one side and the other are extremely important. If you move for the next one. So we are talk about merger and acquisition, and now we are talking more on networks and association. This has to do with international matters. Key differences among them, basically on networks, rules are more strict. In several cases, has to do with the image, in some cases with the name, also some cases with the portfolio of services, the size, the methodology. So there are different approaches on networks and associations. On one hand, also when talking on structures, there are very different also big ones, in other words, the big four, some that are just immediately below that you saw on the Paul's chart. Then there are medium structures, small structures, and also pay attention to local structure, especially when talking about networks, but also on associations. The better known, the most expensive are, the more strict rules they have, especially again in network. Normally networks, as they are subject to IFAC rules regarding form of firms, should have quality control on the transnational audits, common methodology, quite often also some kind of computer program for auditing on corporate basis, and so what we could call the corporation impose most rules. This could be one advantage or one disadvantage. On one side, it could be a good help to promote and to improve your own practice. On the other hand, depending on your own strategy, it could be some kind of limitation on your own develop if you plan to just specialize in a specific sector in your own country, for instance, with no international connection. Let's say that you decide to be absolutely number one in your country for non-for-profit organization. So depending on that, you would need something or the other part. A relevant question that you should answer is, besides what are you looking for, what the contrapart, the other part, can find in you. If you are too small, probably you would be not of the interest of the big ones, of the followers. If you are just specialized on domestic markets with no international experience, probably you would need to think in other kind of structures, not of the biggest ones. Look that any kind of experience on international association, except if you were just planning on pure domestic and you say, well, there are only 3 years to retire myself, so my plan is to sell the practice. Otherwise, it's very important to think on this international part, because as I said before, business is more international. So even for your domestic market, if you don't provide some image that you are connected with the rest of the world, you would have more difficulties that other people that probably have the same skills that you have, but has this kind of, let's say, signal that they are connected with the external world and capable to offer international solutions whenever these solutions were present. So you need to consider what are your cards, your opportunities to negotiate with other people. If we go to the next one, benefits. Certainly referrals. I used to say that referrals is not the main point, except if you were already big enough to be associated with one of the big fours or the followers. The main points are the next one listed on this slide. First, coverage for your client needs. Think that those clients having international needs are probably the best clients for you, are the most dynamic. Those that once you solve the international problems would be loyal for you probably forever, because it would be for them much more difficult to change the international advice structure all over the world. Second point, or third element, but the second in importance, capability to attend bigger, more dynamic and profitable clients. So don't focus only on your existing clients. Having this kind of international stamp, you are able to differentiate from many, many others of your competitors that don't have that. And so you are in a better position to offer some added value to some clients, even domestic clients. You are not anymore the same when you are able to say, I'm belonging to this international organization present in 70 countries around the world, ranked among the 20 best associations, etc. So immediately your image changes. So this provides also marketing and image on your own markets. And this is not only for the market, it's also for your staff. Your staff would feel more happy knowing that they work in a firm that has international connection, absolutely differentiated from most of the domestic competitors, that if the perception is that they were just in a domestic, a local firm. So these are the significant elements also to be mentioned. And of course, all networks, alliance, etc., provide improvement. improvement of methodology, knowledge, capability. You would be able to pick up the phone or to send a mail to other people saying, well, I have this specific element. Do you have any experience on that? And then immediately your service would be upgraded. Of course, there are some disadvantages. Cost, you should pay the belonging fees. Not always these belonging fees are very, very significant. Is more relevant often the cost of attending conferences. And this is extremely important. Once again, we could have physical conference, not today, but this is the experience on the past and probably for the future. Personal meeting is key. You should establish relationship with other partners from other countries based on trust, on mutual trust. And this is not just sending a mail or even having a video conference. It's sharing a coffee, talking on the rest, on dinners, on lunch, and interchange each other opinions. And this would be also very profitable for you because it would be an open understanding of what are good practices in other jurisdictions that are not in competition with yourself. So you always would take wonderful lessons from this kind of conferences. But of course, you should spend time and money for that. Also, depending on the level, depending on the characteristics of the network and association, you will have also some kind of additional methodology, subjects, etc. So also some elements would be taken in consideration. Again, imposed name in some cases, corporate image. For instance, within Auren, our color is red and the logo is that one. And even if someone loves green color, cannot use that for that. So there are some restrictions, if you want, not very significant, but restrictions. Also, in some cases, compulsory to use international structure, especially on networks. You should use for international needs your partners in other countries, and also English skills on partners and teams is essential. You should communicate in English, and so not only partners attending conferences, but you should spend money in improving the English skills on your staff. If we go to the next slide, some words on national networks and associations. We have talked about international, but don't forget national as well. National structures that could be association, could be some kind of common project based on an agreement, even sharing name or without sharing name. By the way, in Auren in Spain at the moment, we are a single firm, but we started just having a common name and an association as an umbrella of all of our structure, just to do together what matters for this kind of proposal is the service to the client. So different structures, it could be this kind of association or network, a way to share capabilities, for instance, with lawyers or with consulting services. Also, a way to improve image, for instance, sharing brand, sharing newsletters, sharing publications, sharing and showing that you are capable to cover the whole country and not just your local office. Also to improve your position on rankings. You can have also some associations focus on having common support. For instance, in Spain, there are some associations that have in common the use of specific IT programs to offer better service on the client's needs, better IT programs on that, or to share staff. When you have a peak season, then you can use other people if there is some elements in common. So don't mislead this point of potential national service, national networks or associations, because in some cases it could be wonderful platform to solve and to improve your own practice development. Then, depending on the proposals, it would be different requirements, maybe some cost, some name, some image, some compulsory referrals or not. So if we go to the next, the key question, what is better for me? Well, first of all, depending on your own strategy. If you are not a boutique, size and international perspective would be absolutely key. If, for instance, you say, well, I'm a reputed professor at the main Georgian university, I have booked a lot of books on, let's say, companies valuation, and this is my field of specialty, maybe you can concentrate on this field and you don't need to have a bigger size. But you are, let's say, a more common practice doing in accounting, in auditing, in tax, etc. Size and international perspective would be absolutely key. Also, some elements to consider. Quite often, some international networks and associations also provide national structure. For instance, this is the case of Antaia in several countries. If you look on the coverage of Antaia in some of the countries, we have in some of them different members in different locations, because especially in big countries, when a client has a need, is not in the country, is in a specific location. But what we stimulate is then collaboration within them in order to say the first step is national collaboration, because you would take a lot of advantage if instead of presenting yourself just as a local office, you present yourself saying you belong to an association, a network, able to provide services in different cities. For instance, you can optimize newsletters, communication, image, seminars for the clients, webinars or seminars for your staff, etc. The stronger the requirement, the more careful you should consider the risk and potentiality. When you change your brand, this is a big jump for future. So you should be much sure on the process. This is why, again, putting our experience that most of our members, as members of the network, start in Antaia. And after a period of mutual knowledge, they say, well, now we can go further and change the name and adapt the stronger rules of Auren. So any international experience would be absolutely beneficial for you. And the final remark, if you don't move and your clients and competitors do, you will go back on your position. So please move, even at the risk of making mistakes. People learn also on mistakes. Thank you very much for your patience, especially listening some translation that always is hard. Thank you for the translators, because also it's very hard to translate a conference, and I'm ready for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antoni. And I have you to thank, actually, for introducing me to a few new English words that I didn't used to use until I saw your slides, and I thought, there's a few words there that I've not used before. So my language ability in English has actually expanded since we started working together. Antoni, I just have one question for you before we roll on to the audience Q&A. And correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding from what you said is that first and foremost, or an important consideration is your practice needs to be an attractive proposition to an alliance or a network. And in order to be attractive, you need to have perhaps reasonable size. Not big, but you need to, unless you're a niche operator in a very specific boutique market, you need to have some scale. And therefore, you covered merger and acquisitions first, because the first step that you might take is to merge or acquire another practice in order to scale up so that you're in a position to be attractive. My understanding then was that perhaps the first step, the logical next step would be to perhaps join an alliance of independent firms. And last but not least, once you'd gotten comfortable with being a part of an alliance, you might join a network. And would that be a fair description, if you like, of how an SMP's journey might look like?
Absolutely right. And this is why also I wanted to mention this kind of national associations and networks, because also it would be a good point to progress. If you are too small, maybe the process of merge and acquire with someone could take some time. It's not easy. Maybe it could be easier even to have some kind of agreement with someone, maybe in your own city, maybe complementing your own services, maybe an alliance with lawyers, with advisors, with IT people, with tax people, whatever. And then if you have this kind of internal alliance, then maybe you could be even more attractive for any international organization. But even from the domestic point of view, this would improve. It could be important that this kind of national alliance, when was in the same city, preferable were on the same site, on the same place. Immediately, let's imagine that your practice is 10 people and you have an agreement with specialized tax people of 10 more. Immediately, if you move together to new premises, the image on the market would be that you are 20. You are double size, so double capability. But also, there could be a lot of synergies on that. People, clients going to visit you would see other people's services. Immediately you can say, wait a minute, I'm calling to my partner, my tax partner, or vice versa. So don't forget national alliances as well.
Thank you, Antoni. And with that, I will hold over to Irina, who will be taking some questions from you, the audience.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Antoni, for a very interesting presentation. Can you hear me now? Yeah. I just wanted to point out that mergers and acquisitions is a very new topic for Georgia in that field. We cannot disregard the fact that Georgia used to be part of the Soviet Union. So our practice built on since the break, obviously since the break of the Soviet Union, and it's not like 100 years. It's something like 25 years, something like that. So this is one point of consideration, that the practices are not very old and are quite young to some extent. At the same time, what I wanted to point out is that in Georgia, we have quite a lot of accountancy practices for such a small country. So the market is very scattered. We do have network firms, foreign network firms present, but the Georgian market is extensive as well. And there, why I'm saying this, there is a lot of room for mergers and acquisitions and in that regard. So there is a lot of interest, there is not a lot of experience. So yes, well, we do have, I'm sure our audience would have some questions, but I will probably start by asking my own question. So in your opinion, how does one identify suitable local practice to merge or acquire? Do you have any advice on that?
Yes, as I say before, it should be ready to that. And what we do is, when talking with anyone, say, well, I mean, we are in a process of merge with acquire. If you are interested in that, we talk on that. We would be very pleasant. Look, the element of progress could be significant with you because you are complementary, because you are in this location, or you have a good team specialized in, I don't know, in foreign expatriates, for instance, or any specific matter. And so we talk. Talking, the only negative result is that you maybe lose your time. But it's the way to explore, saying, are you interested on that? If not, well, you can finalize the conversation saying, if you know any colleague interested on that, let me know. And this is nothing wrong with that. It's not deteriorating your image. On the contrary, it's improving your own image. So you should lose the fear on talking openly to candidates or to anyone that you consider that this could be a candidate. Once you have any single operation, you should publish this as much as possible on your social networks, on your website, on the professional conferences. When there were the professional accounting organization meeting, talking, saying, well, we have merged with these people are very happy, and indirectly saying, if any other is interested, please call me.
Thank you. Do you think professional organizations have a role to play here in terms of connecting their members and giving some tips? What do you think about it?
Yes, this is a very good point. In our professional body, that, well, the situation in Spain is like in, I think, in most of the countries around the world, the profession is very fragmented, too much fragmented. And then this, at the end, means that the bigger and the medium-sized firms grow more, and the smaller go back, and then it's a pity, because at the end, there are a lot of very clever, very good professional that have more and more difficulties to survive and to offer the right service to the clients. So it's very important, this active position on also from the professional body, stimulating this kind of operations, because certainly it's very difficult, in my understanding, for a small practice, let's say a practice of 2-3 people, to provide very good service in a world as complex as today. Just for reading, let's take audit, just for reading all the international standards of auditing, the IFRS, the rules that appears every day, the complex problems and the complex financial operations, you are not able to absorb and to be skillful in all the subjects that you may need. And the same happens with tax or any other proposal. So internally, you need to have some kind of a specialization, even for partners that the specialty is to be the close contact with the client. Should put on the shoes of the clients, understand very well what is the needs of this client, and then to have internally the resources to make the appropriate advice. Otherwise, as I said before, the best clients will move to another competitor that was able to provide added value with their advice. Most of the, let's say, classical accountants are based on just very few added value services, just filling tax returns or filling or carrying, doing the bookkeeping. This today is very easily done by machines, by technology, or by big firms that are able to automatize and then offering prices that at the end don't allow to survive with dignity in the future.
If I can add, Irina, just in terms of what professional bodies can do, and this is obviously just a personal view, is just to try to create some vehicle or mechanism for practices that are interested in merging or acquiring one another to make it public. So one possibility, it could be a very simple web-based platform where a practice is able to say, hey, we are firm XYZ, we are based here, here is our website, we're interested in talking with others that might be interested. Another possibility is to actually host, is for the professional body itself to actually host, for example, in Tbilisi, an event, an evening where somebody talks about the benefits of merger acquisition networks and associations, and then there's a networking event whereby practices with a name badge, maybe color-coded according to their type of interest, and they can circulate with a glass of wine and some canapes looking for other similarly badged people to connect with and start to talk. Because as Antoni says, the important thing is it's all about building relationships. And, COVID has presented us with all sorts of issues, obviously, because we're not able to meet face to face. But once we're through all of this, the need for coming together and building those relationships face to face will be critically important, especially when it comes to finding a future partner, partnering firm, etc.
Yes, and from the individual point of view, is just be open to explore. Is not any price to explore. Some cases would be not successful, but at the end you will find some element of that. So it's the way. let me to mention in certain way is if similar when you are looking for a partner. If you stay at home, probably you never get married, or get a partner. You need to talk, not necessarily in view of any final results, just to explore.
Indeed, it's like a marriage. Well, there is a question from the audience. It's coming from a firm that is planning or looking for a merger or acquisition. So the question is, do you know of a model terms of conditions? Does something like that exist for mergers and acquisitions that one could use?
Well, in fact, each kind of operation is different. It's not the same a merge or an acquisition. Initially, totally different. When you talk about acquisitions, it's not the same if you are buying a practice that is a single shareholder or partner with no minority shareholders. That, of course, you should take care of the staff and everything that we have talked, but it's only negotiation with a single person. When you are or have in front a partnership or a firm having more than one partner, is not exactly the same in any case. And one significant factor is the age and the capabilities of the remaining partners. Are you planning to keep them as partners for how long? If the second partner, for instance, plans to retire, let's say in 3 years, the agreement should be only one agreement. Because it's not any point to, at that moment, start a negotiation with a partner that already is part of your own organization. But if the second partner is 30 years old, for instance, it makes no sense to make any negotiation such that. So this is some consideration of the differences on acquisitions. And on merge is similar. It's not the same if both are similar size or complementary size, for instance, because each one has their own business activity, their own specialty. Let's say one audit, the other tax or advice or whatever. Or if you are at the same field of activity with the same or similar age, the same size, etc. So always different elements should be considered specifically for the operation, taking in account these kind of factors that I mentioned about acceptance for the group, acceptance for the clients, and for the existing partners from one side and from the other.
Well, indeed, it's very different, mergers from acquisitions, but still there might be some kind of guide, like things that should be considered for one or the other. Well, I guess there is none. Maybe if you could think of something like a guidelines, maybe you could share this with us later.
Well, some guidelines is that besides the financial elements, non-financial elements are very, very important. In some case, I mentioned, for instance, the case of the name. The name is essential. You should agree on what would be the remaining name on that. In some cases, there is some kind of partners agreement then the acceptance or the change of the partners agreement with the new partners should be analyzed. In some cases, both parties have a partners agreement, for instance, establishing rules for partners' compensations or for partners' retirement. Once this is consolidated, it could not be two different schemes for important matters such that. So you need to consider what are the points in common, what are the points that are different, and then negotiate each one individually. My recommendation on that is that if, for instance, you don't have a partners agreement, is very good opportunity to sign a partners agreement for future. So it's a good point to say, until now, we are, let's say, two partners, we are based on mutual trust in each other. Now are coming two new partners. So it would be a good moment to say, let's go to rule several elements having to do with these partners agreements. For instance, compensations. For instance, elements if there are some in-species compensation, a car, or other kind of elements that could be in benefit of the partners. What about the work in the practice for relatives, for children or other kind of relatives? How we consider that this should be ruled? Some compulsory or not age for retirement. What would be the right moment for retirement on voluntary basis, on compulsory basis? What would be the rules, for instance, in case of illness? How long the firm would pay that? What is the policy for personal insurance? So it could be quite a lot of elements that often most of the practices that are small with maybe two partners that are friends for a long time don't pay attention. But when we are integrating other people, other partners, these are extremely important.
If I can just add, many thanks, Antoni, for those thoughts. In the reading list, you'll see on the second of the two reading list pages, there is a link to Module 2, Practice Models, Associations and Networks. That's Module 2 of the IFAC Guide to Small and Medium Practices. And you might well find some useful tools, checklists, etc., that can help you.
Thank you, Paul. I think it will be very helpful for the audience. The next question concerns the profits sharing schemes in case of mergers. Of course, it's we understand that it's very individual by case basis. But is there a best practice? You are muted, Antoni.
Sorry. My first point is that it's not good to compensate equal what is different. This creates problems. So some cases, and this is quite often so on small practices, two partners, they say, well, we split the profit the same for each one. It could happen that someone maybe works harder or is much specialized in a more profitable business. If this is just two partners, probably the friendship is strong enough to avoid any kind of conflict, and maybe the the most active partners say, well, for the stability of the group, I don't make a casus belli, a problem with this. When we are with other partners that have not the same common background, etc., this is not the same. Even in some cases, maybe some partners feel that is not be treated because, I don't know, maybe he or she works on Saturdays, have more profitable clients, etc. What is important is to establish some kind of objective rules. The objective rules don't mean, in my understanding, just to compensate the profit that is given to the firm. There are other kind of intangible elements, very valuable for the firms. For instance, maybe one of the partners, let's imagine a practice with 5 partners, maybe one of them have less productive clients on their own client base, but maybe this person gives lectures to potential clients and has better public presence on the market. Maybe the contribution of this partner is very important. So it's significant to pay attention on the list of what are the different kind of contribution from partners. At the end, the model is, and that is used by most of the bigger firms or networks, is a points model. So I don't know, let's imagine several points depending on the profit of the client base, but other points depending on the training for and the building of the staff, some points for marketing activities of the partners, some points for taking care of, I don't know, human resources of the team. At the end, make a list of what is important for the firm, agree on that, and then this is not the solution, because then the main problem would be on second step is who and how attribute partners and points to each partners because of, let's imagine, marketing activities. What is more valuable, to write an article on the national press or to give a seminar to potential clients? But at the end, this makes the problem more in some kind of framework that then it could be on different systems. For instance, wide votation of points on an anonymous base for each one of the concepts and each one of the partners. But this kind of elements of compensation is key. In my view, it's not good to say the firm profit has been, let's say, 100 divided by 5, 20 for each one. This is not stimulating and is not given the right message to the partners. It's more interesting saying we will allocate 100 points depending on marketing, profitability, staff building, review of quality, whatever were important for the firm, and then trying to make some kind of objective distribution of those 100 points among the partners.
Thank you. Well, it is quite a complex subject indeed. There are no simple ways. It really requires a tailored approach for each situation. I will probably join Paul in advising our participants to refer to the resources shared for more information. And with this, I would like to thank our distinguished guests, our honored speakers, Antoni, Paul. I would like to thank our translators as well, of course, as always, and our participants. I can see that there is a lot of interest in this subject, and we could not answer all the questions, unfortunately, today, because we are running out of time. And I will give the floor to Paul to add, if you would like to add to what was said by Antoni before, and maybe summarize.
All I wanted to say was...
Sorry, Paul, just 1 minute before you take the floor. Certainly, I saw there are several other questions. If you, Irina, send me these questions by mail, it would be a pleasure to answer that, and then you channel to the appropriate attendee. So if you send me the questions, it would be a pleasure to answer by mail by tomorrow or maximum on Monday.
Thank you, Antoni. I think it will be really appreciated by our participants.
Yeah, that would. And again, I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to you, Antoni, for being such a great presenter today and offering some fantastic insights into the whole subject of network association, merger and acquisition. As for the closing remarks, I just want to remind all of you that the video recording and slides in PDF will be available, disseminated via email and or posted to the website of SARAS at saras.gov.ge. The next webinar, we hope, will take place possibly towards the end of June. Look out for the details, which will be shared with you on the website in front of you. And in terms of those resources that were referred to, if you run through the list here, they're all hyperlinked. You'll see that there is the English version, and then there is if there's a Georgian translation available, the Georgian translation is in the second link marked here, GE. And that's true for all of these documents here. You can see all the ones with GE. If you click on the link, it will take you to the Georgian version. There is other reading material as well, various other documents that are available. These listed on reading page 2, unfortunately, are only available in English. So thanks once again for being with us today. Thank you all for sparing your time with us, and I hope that you are somewhat more wiser about the topic, and go forth, merge and acquire and join an alliance or a network as fits your circumstances. Thank you.